My name is Michelle, I'm 28 years old, and I live in a modest two-bedroom apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. I work as a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized tech company, pulling in a comfortable six-figure salary that took me 7 years of 60-hour weeks to achieve. I have one sister, Bonnie, who's 26, and our parents passed away in a car accident when I was 22 and she was 20. Since that day, I became more than her sister. I became her guardian, her safety net, her backup plan for everything. For 6 years, I'd been the one who answered every frantic call at 2 a.m. The one who wired money for rent when her artist boyfriend couldn't sell his paintings. The one who flew to San Francisco 3 times to help her move apartments because she kept chasing creative opportunities that never quite materialized. I paid off $43,000 in her student loans. I covered her health insurance for 4 years at $6,800 annually. I sent her $1,200 every month for 2 years when she was finding herself in Portland. I never asked for anything back. That's what family does, right? It was a Tuesday morning, October 15th, at exactly 7:23 a.m. when everything changed. I was sitting at my kitchen table, steam rising from my French press coffee, checking emails before my morning commute. My phone buzzed with a text from Bonnie. I smiled before I even opened it. She'd been dating this French guy, Bennett, for 8 months, and I knew an engagement was coming. She'd been dropping hints for weeks. The message read, "OMG Michelle. Bennett proposed last night in front of the Eiffel Tower. We're getting married in Paris next June. Small intimate ceremony, only 40 people. Here's the thing though. Bennett's family doesn't speak English and it's really important to him that everyone at the wedding can participate in French. So the whole thing will be in French, vows, toasts, everything. I know you don't speak French lol, and honestly it would be super awkward having someone there who can't understand what's happening. So we've decided to keep it just to people who are fluent. But don't worry, we'll do a casual reception thing in Seattle later for everyone else. Love you." I read it 3 times. My coffee grew cold in my hand. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't scream. I just sat there, watching the rain streak down my window, feeling something fundamental shift inside my chest like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. 6 years. $150,000 in total support, give or take a few thousand. Countless nights I'd skipped social events to be available when she needed me. The promotion I'd turned down because it required relocating to Austin, and I didn't want to be too far from her. And now I wasn't French enough for her wedding. Not, "I wish you could learn some basic phrases." Not, "Would you be willing to take a class?" Just, "You're not invited. LOL. With a laughing emoji. My hands didn't tremble. That's what surprised me most. I typed back, "Congratulations on your engagement. We should talk soon." 5 words. Calm. Measured. I didn't want to fight. I wanted clarity. I stood up, poured my cold coffee down the sink, got dressed in my usual work uniform of black slacks and a pressed white blouse, and drove to my office in South Lake Union like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. Something had broken, quietly and completely, like ice cracking on a frozen lake. You don't hear it happen, but suddenly the surface won't hold your weight anymore. If you've ever felt taken for granted by the people you love most, hit that subscribe button and stick around. This story gets wild. The drive to work usually took 25 minutes, but that morning I barely noticed the traffic on I-5. Rain hammered my windshield, typical Seattle October weather, gray and unrelenting. I kept thinking, how did we get here? I worked at Cascade Analytics, a company that helped other businesses optimize their financial operations. My job was stable, predictable, sometimes boring, but it paid $127,000 a year plus bonuses. That stability mattered because 6 years ago, when our parents died, stability became the only thing that mattered. I remember the exact moment I became Bonnie's de facto parent. It was November 12th, 3 weeks after the funeral. I was in my studio apartment in Fremont, sitting on my bedroom floor next to my wheezing washing machine, surrounded by bills. Mom and Dad's estate was a mess. They'd been living paycheck to paycheck, no life insurance, and they died with $38,000 in credit card debt. Bonnie was in her junior year at Berkeley, studying art history, completely falling apart. She called me sobbing, saying she'd have to drop out. I looked at those bills, at my own student loans, at my entry-level analyst salary of $54,000, and I made a choice. I called her back and said, "Don't drop out. I've got you." And I did. For 6 years, I had her. Here's what that looked like in concrete terms. 2019 to 2020, paid her full tuition for senior year, $28,000. Sent her $800 monthly for rent and expenses, $9,600. Total, $37,600. 2020 to 2021, she moved to Portland to pursue art. Covered her rent, $14,400. Health insurance, $6,800. Emergency dental work, $3,200. Flight home for Thanksgiving when she was depressed, $340. Total, $24,740. 2021 to 2022, moved her back to San Francisco. First, last, and deposit on new apartment, $6,900. Monthly support reduced to $1,000, $12,000. Student loan payments I took over, $9,200. Total, $28,100. 2022 to 2023, relationship with artist boyfriend began. More financial emergencies. Car repair, $2,400. Helped fund her gallery show that lost money, $5,000. Monthly support continued, $12,000. Health insurance, $6,800. Total, $26,200. 2023 to 2024, paid off remaining student loans, $17,800. Continued monthly support, $14,400. Flew out 4 times for various crises, $1,360. Medical bills when she had no insurance, $2,800. Total, $36,360. 2024, so far, monthly support, $9,600. Engagement gift I was planning, $5,000. Wedding contribution I'd already mentally allocated, $50,000. Grand total over 6 years, approximately $148,000. Plus the countless hours on the phone, the emotional labor, the worry, the weekends spent helping her move, the career opportunities one didn't take because I needed to be available. I never kept score. That's what sisters do, right? That's what family means. But sitting in my car in the parking garage that Tuesday morning, engine off, rain drumming on the roof, I realized something. To Bonnie, I wasn't her sister anymore. I was a transaction. A resource. An ATM that occasionally required emotional maintenance. And when the ATM wasn't convenient for her Paris fantasy? LOL, sorry, you're not invited. I walked into the office and tried to focus on spreadsheets, but my mind kept wandering. Around 11 a.m., my colleague Harry knocked on my office door. Harry was 52, had worked at Cascade for 15 years, and had become something of a work mentor to me. "You okay?" he asked, setting a coffee on my desk. "You've been staring at that same cell for 20 minutes. I almost said I was fine. But something about his genuine concern, the simple kindness of bringing me coffee, cracked something open. My eyes burned. My sister uninvited me to her wedding, I said quietly. Because I don't speak French. Harry blinked. I'm sorry, what? I told him the whole story. Not the financial details, but the gist. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Michelle, he finally said, I've known you for 4 years. In that time, I've watched you skip team dinners because your sister needed something. I've seen you take calls during lunch breaks, always for her. I've never once heard you talk about what you want. He was right. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just for me. Maybe, Harry said gently, it's time to stop being the one who always answers. His words echoed in my head for the rest of the day. By the time I drove home that evening, watching the Seattle skyline disappear in my rearview mirror, I knew what I had to do. Wednesday, October 16th, 10:30 a.m. I took a half-day off work and drove to Pacific Northwest Bank on 4th Avenue, where I'd been a customer for 8 years. I'd scheduled an appointment with Marvin Chin, the senior account manager who'd helped me set up my investment accounts. Marvin was in his early 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. We met in his private office, all dark wood and leather chairs. He pulled up my accounts on his computer. So, Michelle, he said warmly, you mentioned wanting to restructure some things? I need to cancel a pending transfer, I said. My voice was steady. And I need to move some funds around. I'd set up an automatic transfer to go through on November 1st, $50,000 to a high-yield savings account I'd designated as Bonnie's wedding fund. I'd been adding to it monthly for a year, planning to surprise her with a check to cover her dream wedding. The balance currently sat at $67,400. I want to cancel that transfer, I said. And I want to move the wedding fund into my retirement account. Marvin's fingers paused over his keyboard. That's a significant decision. May I ask what's changed? The wedding's still happening, I said calmly. I'm just not invited. His expression shifted from professional curiosity to genuine concern. Are you absolutely sure about this? These decisions, especially made in the heat of emotion. I'm sure, I said. I've never been more sure of anything. He nodded slowly and made the changes. 73 clicks, a few signature verifications, and it was done. $67,400 redirected from being my sister's dream wedding to being my actual retirement. I also called my benefits administrator and removed Bonnie as the beneficiary on my life insurance policy, replacing her with a charity that supported orphan children. If something happened to me, the $500,000 payout would go to kids who actually needed it, not to fund someone's French fantasy life. When I left the bank at 11:47 a.m., my phone already showed 2 missed calls from Bonnie. Then a text, Michelle, call me back. Need to finalize some wedding stuff. I turned my phone off. Completely off. Then I drove to a small wine bar in Fremont, ordered a glass of Pinot Noir at noon on a Wednesday, and sat by the window watching people walk by in the rain. The memories came in waves. Bonnie at Mom's funeral, gripping my hand so hard it hurt. Teaching her how to file taxes when she turned 21. The time I flew to Portland at midnight because she'd called me crying about a breakup. Thanksgiving dinners where I cooked for both of us. Her birthday gifts I'd spent weeks picking out. The care packages I'd sent during finals week. The hundreds of texts that started with Michelle, I need. And my response, always, without hesitation, of course. But also, the times she'd forgotten my birthday. The promotion I'd gotten that she'd said cool about before launching into her own problems. The weekend I'd had food poisoning and called her for company, and she'd said she was too busy. The pattern I'd refused to see, I was the giver, she was the taker, and that was just how our relationship worked. And that message. That stupid, casual, LOL message. Like excluding your only family from the most important day of your life was just a minor inconvenience, something to laugh about. I finished my wine and went home. At 6:47 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Rachel, Bonnie's best friend from college, standing on my porch. Rachel lived in Tacoma now, worked as a nurse, and I'd always liked her. We weren't close, but we were friendly. I opened the door. "Hey, Michelle," Rachel said, her face tight with discomfort. "Can we talk?" I let her in. Made tea. We sat in my living room, rain pattering against the windows. "Bonnie asked me to come," Rachel said carefully. "She said you're not returning her calls and she's worried." "I'm fine," I said. "Just needed some space." "Look, I know about the wedding thing." Rachel shifted uncomfortably. "The French-only thing. It's..." I told her it was harsh. "Harsh," I repeated. The word felt too small. "She's really excited about marrying Bennett," Rachel continued. "His family is very traditional, and I think she's just trying to." "Rachel," I interrupted gently, "did she tell you I've given her over $140,000 in the last 6 years?" Rachel's eyes widened. "What?" "Tuition, rent, loans, health insurance, moving costs, monthly support, medical bills. I paid for basically everything since our parents died." I sipped my tea. "And now I'm not French enough to watch her get married. So I've made some financial adjustments." "What kind of adjustments?" Rachel asked quietly. "The kind where I stop funding someone else's life and start living my own." Rachel stared at me for a long moment. "She doesn't know about the money, does she? How much you've actually spent?" I never told her exact amounts, I admitted. I didn't want her to feel guilty. "Michelle," Rachel said, and her voice was sad, "you can't feel guilty for spending money if you don't know it's being spent." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Rachel stood up. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you're right. And I think Bonnie has no idea what she's lost." After she left, I sat alone in my living room as the sky darkened. My phone was still off. The silence felt like power. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. If you're invested in this story, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. The fallout is about to get real. Thursday morning, October 17th. I turned my phone back on at 7 a.m. It immediately vibrated like it was having a seizure. 43 missed calls. 67 text messages. The progression was fascinating in its predictability. Tuesday evening, "Michelle, why aren't you answering? I need to talk to you about being in the Seattle reception party." Tuesday night, "Seriously, this is rude. Call me back." Wednesday morning, "Are you mad? About the Paris thing? I thought you'd understand." Wednesday afternoon, Rachel said she stopped by. "Why are you being so dramatic?" Wednesday evening, "Okay, this is ridiculous. Bennett's family is paying for most of the wedding and they have requirements. Stop making this about you." Thursday, 2:47 a.m., "Michelle, I'm freaking out. The venue needs a $30,000 deposit by Friday and Bennett's parents' wire transfer isn't going through and I need you to cover it temporarily. Please. It's an emergency." There it was. The real reason for the panic. Not that she missed me. Not that she'd reconsidered. She needed money. I made coffee and read through the rest. Around 6 a.m., the tone shifted again. 6:15 a.m., I talked to Marvin at Pacific Northwest Bank because my emergency contact notification went off. He said you moved the wedding fund? Michelle, what the fuck? That was for my wedding. I almost laughed. The wedding fund she'd never known about was suddenly hers. The entitlement was breathtaking. 6:32 a.m., I need that money, Michelle. The venue deposit is due tomorrow. You can't just take away money you promised me. I'd never promised her anything. The fund was my surprise, my gift, my choice. And it was my choice to redirect it. At 8:14 a.m., a new email arrived. Subject line, "We need to talk from your sister." I opened it. Michelle. I don't know what's going on with you, but this behavior is completely unacceptable. I understand you're upset about the Paris wedding, and maybe I could have explained it better, but you have to understand that Bennett's family is very important to him and they have certain expectations. This wedding isn't just about me, it's about joining two families. That said, I'm willing to discuss your feelings about the French thing, but I need you to understand that I have an actual crisis happening. The venue deposit is $30,000 and it's due tomorrow at 5 p.m. or we lose the chateau. Bennett's parents' international wire is delayed because of banking issues, and I need you to front the money for maybe a week, 2 weeks tops. Once this crisis is handled, we can sit down and talk about everything. I know I haven't been the best sister lately, and I want to work on that. But right now, I really need you to come through for me like you always do. Please, Michelle. I'm begging you. Love. Bonnie. I read it twice. The structure was perfect. Minimize her actions, acknowledge my feelings only as leverage, frame her need as urgent, promise future reconciliation contingent on immediate compliance. It wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation. I closed the email without responding. At 12:30 p.m., I met Harry for lunch at a small faux restaurant near the office. I told him everything that had happened since Tuesday. He listened without interrupting, methodically eating his soup. "How do you feel?" he finally asked. "Relieved," I said. "Is that terrible?" "No," Harry said. "It's healthy." He set down his spoon. My daughter did something similar to me about 10 years ago. Needed money for a business venture, promised to pay me back, never did. When I stopped funding her lifestyle, she didn't talk to me for a year. What happened? She came back eventually, Harry said. With a real apology. We have a good relationship now, but it required her to grow up and me to maintain my boundaries. He looked at me seriously. The question isn't whether Bonnie will forgive you. It's whether you'll forgive yourself for having boundaries. His words settled into my chest like stones in still water, creating ripples. That evening at 7:23 p.m., my doorbell rang again. This time it was Mike, Bonnie's boyfriend before Bennett, an old family friend who'd known us since we were kids. He lived in Seattle, worked in marketing, and had always been kind. I opened the door and gestured him inside. Let me guess. Bonnie sent you. She's panicking, Mike said, accepting the coffee I offered. The venue thing is real, Michelle. She's going to lose the chateau. That's unfortunate, I said calmly. Mike blinked at my tone. You're really not going to help her? Why would I? Because she's your sister? Is she? I asked. Because sisters invite each other to their weddings. Sisters don't send LOL texts about excluding you from the most important day of their lives. Mike was quiet for a moment. The French thing was stupid, he admitted. I told her that. It wasn't just stupid. It was revealing. I sipped my coffee. It showed me exactly how she sees me. I'm useful when I'm needed, invisible when I'm not. So there's nothing that can change your mind? Not even to prevent her from losing the venue? No, I said simply. Can I ask why you're so certain? Because desperate people make promises they don't intend to keep, I said. Bonnie's email this morning was full of "we'll talk later" and "I want to work on that." But there was no real apology. No real recognition of what she did. Just urgency about what she needs from me right now. Mike nodded slowly. You've thought this through. I've had 6 years to think it through. I was just too busy being useful to notice. He set down his coffee cup and stood. For what it's worth, I think she's going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But that's her journey, not mine. After Mike left, I closed the door and leaned against it. The apartment was quiet except for the rain outside. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. Bonnie lost the Chateau venue. She sent me a bitter text about it on Saturday. Hope you're happy. The venue's gone. We're having to do a small ceremony at Bennett's parents' house now. This is all your fault. I didn't respond. It wasn't my fault that she'd planned a wedding she couldn't afford. It wasn't my fault that she'd assumed my wallet was part of her budget without asking. It wasn't my fault that she'd excluded me and then expected me to pay for the privilege of being excluded. The following Tuesday, 1 week after the original text, I received a final email from Bonnie. Subject: I guess this is it. Michelle. I've spent the last week trying to understand what I did that was so terrible that you'd sabotage my wedding. Yes, maybe I should have been more sensitive about the French thing. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. That wasn't my intention. But what you've done is so much worse. You've abandoned me when I needed you most. You've proven that your love is conditional, that it comes with strings attached, that you're keeping score of every dollar you've ever given me. I thought we were family. I thought family showed up for each other. But I guess I was wrong about you. I hope whatever point you're trying to make is worth losing your only sister over. Bonnie. I read it once. Noted the half apology buried in accusations. Noted the complete lack of self-awareness. Noted the victim mentality, the blame shifting, the manipulation. Then I archived it and moved on with my day. The strange thing about letting go is how much space it creates. Without the constant background anxiety of being Bonnie's safety net, I felt lighter. Clearer. More present in my own life. I established new rules for myself. 1. I would not financially support anyone who didn't respect me. 2. I would not sacrifice my own well-being for someone who wouldn't do the same. 3. I would not be available 24/7 to people who couldn't bother to include me in their lives. 4. I would invest in relationships that were mutual, not one-sided. With my newfound time and emotional energy, I started doing things I'd put off for years. I joined a book club that met every other Thursday. I took a pottery class on Saturday mornings. I went on actual dates instead of canceling because Bonnie needed something. I bought expensive cheese and good wine just because I wanted to. I booked a trip to Iceland for February, something I dreamed about but never prioritized. I also started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, helped me understand something crucial. I'd been confusing self-sacrifice with love. I'd believed that if I just gave enough, did enough, sacrificed enough, I'd finally be valued. But that's not how it works. People who only want you for what you can give them will never value you for who you are. You trained your sister to treat you this way, Dr. Kim said gently during one session. Every time she demanded and you delivered without boundaries, you taught her that your needs didn't matter. It hurt to hear, but it was true. I'd enabled the dynamic as much as Bonnie had exploited it. December came. I heard through Mike that Bonnie's small ceremony at Bennett's parents' house in Lyon had gone well. 40 people, all French, no one from her American life except Rachel, who'd learned enough French to get by. I felt nothing when I heard this. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Just a peaceful acceptance that we were living separate lives now. On Christmas Eve, a card arrived at my apartment. Handwritten, from Bonnie. Inside was a single sentence, "I miss you." Not "I'm sorry for how I treated you." Not "I understand now." Just "I miss you." I missed her too, in a way. I missed the idea of having a sister. But I didn't miss the exhaustion. I didn't miss the fear of saying no. I didn't miss feeling like a bank account with a pulse. I put the card in a drawer and went to Harry's house for Christmas dinner, where his wife had invited me to join their family celebration. It was warm and loud and full of laughter, and no one needed anything from me except my company. The lesson I learned cost me $148,000 and 6 years of my life. You cannot love someone into respecting you. You cannot sacrifice yourself into being valued. You cannot give your way into someone's heart if they don't already see you as worth keeping there. I wish I'd known this at 22, standing in my tiny apartment, surrounded by bills, deciding to become Bonnie's everything. I wish someone had told me that being a good sister didn't mean being an endless resource. That boundaries aren't betrayals. That saying no is sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for them and for yourself. There's a strange peace that comes with letting go of people who only love you for what you provide. It's the peace of stepping off a treadmill you didn't realize you were on. Of finally asking yourself, what do I want, and discovering you're allowed to want things too. I don't know if Bonnie and I will ever have a real relationship again. Maybe someday she'll grow enough to understand what happened. Maybe she won't. Either way, I've learned to be okay with it. Because I'm not her mother. I'm not her bank. I'm not her safety net. I'm Michelle. I'm 28. I live in Seattle. And for the first time in 6 years, I'm living my own life. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever struggled with setting boundaries with family, or if you're tired of being taken for granted, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support means everything, and it helps me keep telling these stories. More importantly, if you're in a situation like I was, know this: you are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to have boundaries. And you are allowed to walk away from people who don't see your worth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach people that you matter too. Thanks for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve relationships that are built on mutual respect, not one-sided sacrifice. Take care of yourselves out there.